Hello, everybody. Thanks again for visiting my YouTube channel. We are here once again discussing the Lord's Recovery Movement, also known as the local church movement of Witness Lee. In this episode, I want to talk about something I've mentioned before, but I want to go into some more depth, and I really want to emphasize it because I think it's a crucial point to understand, and it's one of the great examples of the hypocrisy of the Lord's Recovery Movement and the illogical mindset and the way they are very inconsistent in their thinking and in their beliefs. And that is this idea of the group being the recovery. And the idea of recovery means that there's always progress. It means you're always going forward. It means that God has the chance to change the group and alter the group and adjust the group according to what he's doing. That was the whole basis for Watchman Nee leaving religion in China in the first place and starting this new movement and eventually calling it the recovery and then passing the torch to Witness Lee, and Witness Lee really picked it up about the recovery, and that was one of his claims to fame, was this was the Lord's recovery. This is where he was recovering these great truths of the Bible. But it goes further than that in that the movement has stated, and apparently Witness Lee said at one time, there's no need for any more recovery. God has recovered all he needs to recover. Now we just need to lock down what we have and defend it and spread it because recovery has happened and now it's changed completely. There's no more recovery, and he's not going to add anything new. And even he said there's not going to be any more ministers of the age. And that's what the Blended Brothers say. It's no more ministers of the age, everything's recovered. Well, isn't it kind of suspicious and convenient that when they come along and get in power, suddenly there's not going to be any more ministers of the age, there's not going to be any more recovery, there's nothing to add to Witness Lee's message, it's perfect, it's complete, it's intact, to change it is wrong, and to alter it is wrong, and to say that he might have been mistaken in some places wrong. They're just locked in concrete, and yet they still call themselves the recovery. Well, the whole idea of recovery is that God might move on. God might make a change. God might make a shift. That's what Watchman Nee saw. He saw he could not operate in the sphere of the foreign missionaries organizations, and he had to do something different. So he did. Why did he do that? Because he felt he had to. Because he felt God led him to do that. And what was the action he took? The action he took was he told the foreign missionaries, I'm going to go do my own thing now. God bless you, but I'm going to go do my own thing. In other words, he voted with his feet. Well, the problem with the Lord's recovery is it says you can't do that. It says, no, it's all ended with us. There's no more recovery anywhere else. And we're it. And now we're frozen in time and there's nothing left to recover. Well, in the first place, there's no way they can possibly know that because recovery is always a surprise when it happens. So you can't possibly know it. The only one that can know if there's not anything left to recover is God. Witness Lee certainly didn't know it. A lot of the problems in the Lord's recovery are based upon the fact that the group is missing some information. They're missing a lot of information on raising kids, teaching kids, personal interaction, marriage, coupling, those types of things are missing. Witness Lee didn't talk about this stuff, and just calling on the Lord and pray, reading the Word aren't enough to solve those problems. Sometimes you need an expert in those areas to help. And the Lord's recovery doesn't like to get involved in those kind of things because it would be to say Witness Lee was inadequate, and they dare not say that. So it's a very strange position to be in. They can't go forward, they can just stay stuck in the past. And what the movement dearly and sorely needs most is to admit Witness Lee was not perfect. Witness Lee didn't have all the answers. There's more that's needed besides his ministry, but they dare not say that because their whole lock on people and their whole claim to fame is that Witness Lee was perfect. So the Lord's recovery is stuck in the past. Recovery means progress. Recovery means being able to move forward. Their doctrine of controlling their members is actually antithetical to the whole idea of recovery because Watchman Nee left religion and started his own thing. And Witness Lee used to talk about leaving religion. Well, what do you do when the people that have left religion become religion themselves? Well, according to the principle of recovery, you can leave them too. You got to. You got to move on. There's got to be a way for God to move on. There's got to be a way for God to leave religion and some group that's stuck in the mud and isn't going forward. People have to be able to vote with their feet. And the Lord's Recovery says, no, you can't vote with your feet. You can't do it. Well, that makes absolutely no sense at all. How come you guys got to leave religion but nobody gets to leave you? This to me is one of the biggest refutations of their whole mindset. If they're for recovery, then they should admit, hey, God could leave us. God could move on from us. And they don't get to decide for everybody when that happens, because probably they're going to be the last ones to know. That's the way it usually works, especially the leaders. The leaders are going to be the last ones to know. And they're going to be the last ones to want to believe it, because guess what? Their livelihood is tied up in this thing. They've got control of these people, and what are they doing? They're getting money from them, okay, which pays their salary. And they are probably at some level scared to death that that's going to dry up. Because if the thing starts to fall apart and people start leaving in droves and they stop buying the books and they stop coming to the trainings, because it's going to happen. I remember watching a movie called Open Range. You may have seen it, Kevin Costner and Robert Duvall, about these two guys who defended this town against a domineering, abusive leader. And the townspeople were totally intimidated by this guy and his henchmen because they would kill him if they opposed him. But as Robert Duvall and Kevin Costner engaged these guys, and eventually they had a gunfight and they started to get some advantage, push them back a little bit, suddenly the townspeople started coming out of their shops and houses with their guns and rifles, creeping up, kind of saying, okay, we're seeing how this is going. We can do something here. And eventually there was a point where the bad guys realized that they didn't have the advantage anymore, and they started running and scattered, and then the townspeople started chasing them and gunning them down because these guys were a bunch of murderers. And that's the way it's going to be in the Lord's Recovery. Eventually there is going to be a groundswell, just a moment when the thing breaks. It's probably be pretty sudden, and it'll probably revolve around some kind of revelation of crimes or sexual abuse. Some kind of scandal will probably come out that they can't ignore. And in this age of the internet, it's getting harder and harder to bury stuff. Back in Witness Lee's day, he never could have anticipated the internet. And he could control the message, and he could control information, he can control what people heard. And it's getting harder and harder and harder to do that. Eventually there's going to be a break, and this thing's going to fall apart, and there's going to be a mass exodus, and these guys aren't going to have their income, and they're going to have to go get real jobs. And some of them are going to end up working at Discount Tire or being greeters at Walmart. Not that there's anything wrong with those jobs, but that scares them to death, I'm sure. And they deserve that because they've been abusing people for years. And the Lord is jealous for his people, and he loves his people. And he said, if you offend one of these little ones, it's better if you tied a millstone around your neck and threw it in the ocean, sunk yourself in the ocean. That'd be better for you. The whole Old Testament is full of commands from God to defend the oppressed, defend the weak, defend the defenseless. And these leaders have done just the opposite. They've offended and oppressed the defenseless. They've used them for their purposes. God is not going to just stand by forever and let it happen. He's going to stand up for his people, and I encourage all of you to pray about this. You don't have to get mean or anything like that. You don't have to pray that they get struck by lightning. That's not my point. That's what they do. Don't do that. But just pray for justice. Pray that God would defend his people. Pray that he would free his people. Let my people go, said Moses. These guys need to let God's people go. So always remember, if they're for recovery, then they should be very, very open to people leaving, because in order for God to truly recover, that just might need to happen. That's it for now. Thanks for listening. Take care.